Hey, Design One. The remote students this week, I just want to make sure right off the bat that you get those two composition activity or two collage activities turned in. On the last 2 weeks, we've done collage activities. The first one, just using that colored paper, and then the second one, inspired by one of those four artists we've talked about. Um, in class, what students have been turning in is really impressive. So I've been really happy with what I've seen. It's amazing how far you can push collage to make it a really nice, like finished, fine artwork. Um, Once you have those done, um, the next step for you guys to take is to actually complete this quiz. This I'm using fifth hour as an example, but in every class, just on the front page of your course, down here at the bottom, there's a composition post assessment. It's the exact same thing as the pre-assessment. You're just retaking it to show like the new information you've learned. This one is actually for a grade, so just make sure to give it your best shot. I think there's like 11 questions. So once you've done that, I'm going to kind of in this video introduce the next project. So here again, remote learners, this is where you're at right now watching this video, but week 7 is where we're at. And in this folder, along with this video, which obviously isn't in there yet because, yeah, there's this value study guide and this cross-hatching example. Both of those you'll reference possibly when you're working on this next little mini project. So I'm going to go ahead and actually move into the slideshow for you. All right. So this is called the With a Word value study. What we're going to be doing during this one, and I kind of gave it away, here's kind of an example. What the artist did here is took words, if you can see, in each one of these lines there's writing done across. And this one's just like repeating words about like family or something. What you're going to do is find a set of words that's meaningful to you in some way. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. And then you're going to vary the size of the words going across the page to make an interesting composition. And then within each of those little subsections that's made, you see all these little pieces. With each little shape left behind, there is a value change. There's a gradient in each one of those, like this piece of green here. It's darkest at the top, lightest at the bottom. The blue next to it, dark at the top, light at the bottom. And there's just a variety of ways they do that to create different values. This project is actually not going to be due next week. We won't be starting this final one until next week. So I'm just introducing the idea, but what we're going to be doing this week is a value study. It's going to be a smaller mini project, and then next week we'll be launching into this one. But what I do want you to do for this project is find your words that you're going to use. These are examples of like places you can find them. My brain went to song lyrics, and I've been like sketching out like certain song lyrics that I enjoy a lot, that mean something to me. Maybe you can do like a list of like family member names would be a good one. You can do a poem you like or an original one. You can do favorite quotes. I think quotes could be really interesting. Bible verses would be great. Song lyrics like I was doing. You can do like a self-portrait with words, like describing yourself or words describing someone else. A list of best friends, just whatever you want to get your words that you're using. The only thing I'd shy you away from is having too few words or too many words. Like 2 or 3 words probably wouldn't be enough to fill a page, but you could if you had to, but I'd shy away from that. And then I wouldn't have like 2 paragraphs worth in this piece either. Kind of think about the size of the amount of space those words will take up. So, like I said, for this project, I just want you to pick your words and have them written out or whatever. And then next week when you get your next update, Mr. Leduc will be explaining what you're going to do next. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce value, and that's what you're using in this These are all those little value changes I was talking about within each of these sections. So value is the lightness or darkness of a color. It's one of the most simple elements of art to understand. Here's an example. This spheres are a really great way to study value because they have just such a great range of value. They have their highlight, the coarse shadow, even some reflected light down here at the bottom. That's light that's like reflecting off the table that kind of creates some light underneath. And then the cast shadow down underneath. Creates a lot of variety of value, which creates contrast. Down here at the bottom, this is what we're actually going to be doing. This is called like a value scale. 1 being the white of the paper, and 10 being the darkest black you can get from whatever medium you're working with. If you're working with paint, you can get it pretty dark. If you're working with a pencil, it's still going to be like a really dark gray. And it depends on what pencils you have. If you have a nice set of like artist pencils, you can get like a 6B pencil. It's like one of the darkest ones you can get, and that can push a lot darker than like a normal like number 2 pencil you use like for school writing. But just based on whatever you have, you will create a value scale. And this is what it will look like, something like this. In that folder on Schoology, I have that example of, it looks like this, of that value scale. And you can reference this while you're making your value scale. It's a really good example. And doing this well is really important. As you go across, it's a very smooth transition. There's no like, all of these are kind of light and then it gets dark all of a sudden. I mean, it's really smooth. So you want to think about that when you're working on these. So I have this example here of one I did, or one Mr. Leduc did, I'm sorry. That's his value scale. And the way he did this, and the way I'd suggest you guys do it, if you have a ruler or something of the sort, he just placed this ruler on here and traced around it. And then he made it 10 inches long. And then for each inch, he put like a mark and drew a line across. So you got these 10 perfectly even squares. And it's really important to try and get these pretty even and straight in order to see the value scale well. And then you'll go in and make those marks across. As far as the mark making goes, I have this example in that folder. I'll pull this up real quick for you guys. Cross-hatching examples here. This is an example of cross-hatching. This is done with pen, I believe, but it works the same with pencil. I find that when students are first getting into pencil and want to do shading with pencil, what they tend to do is go in and draw, sorry, you can't see me, draw with the pencil to begin with, and then go back in and like just like smudge it with your finger, to get it to blend really even. I'm going to try and get you to shy away from that. This eye, I mean, it looks like a really well-drawn eye, but you can see every single line the artist used to make that. I think that is really important, and it creates more interest in the piece. So what I'm going to have you do is actually, when you're doing this value scale, actually hatch like the artist did here, making like vertical lines and horizontal lines as you work around. And I'm going to grab a pencil real quick. Sorry, one second. While you're hatching, how you hold your pencil is really important. If you have your hand all the way up to the tip of the pencil and you're hatching, it's going to make like really dark lines typically because you're using a lot more pressure. But to do those really light colors at the early side of those values, I'd hold the pencil like from the back here and just have it barely glance the page as you go across, and creates a really nice light value. And then as you get darker, you can kind of have your hand go up further and further towards the tip to get those dark values. But yeah, you'll go ahead and make your 10 values, no blending with your thumb or anything, just pencil marks and using hatching. Once you're done with that, what we're going to do next is what we did in class is what you see down here. And this was actually a bucket of rocks we have here in the class. And each student grabbed a rock and held it in their hand and just drew that rock on their paper like 5 or 6 times from like different angles, looking at it from different directions. They just did a quick drawing of the rock and got something like this, where it's all overlapping. And much like we're going to do with those words in the next project, it's just like a little study where everywhere where those rocks overlap each other, those are all broken down into smaller shapes, and each one of those small shapes has a different value scale in it. Here's an example of one that's finished. This is a big one. You won't be working this big. It has all those really nice value changes in there. And it's all done with like different forms of mark making, but mostly hatching, which is what you're going to be working with. But for yours, you can do it just like this. Do the value scale top of the page, rock drawing at the bottom of the page, okay? If you don't have a rock, that's okay. You can just draw ovals, or you can grab something else. Got a remote right here. You can hold a remote in your hand and draw it from 5 different angles. And it would work the same. There's really no specific reason it has to be a rock. So, yeah, so just as a recap, take that quiz over the composition. It is worth points, so you want to take it. 11 questions should take you just a few minutes to finish. Once you're done with that quiz, grab a ruler, do your value scale, and then do your value study with whatever object you have overlapping like that. Once you're done with both of those, we will have you go ahead and upload those on Schoology, and we'll give you some points for it. And then the other thing you need to do before next week is come up with your words that you're going to use in that value project we're going to be doing next week. So I think I have all the information you need uploaded into Schoology. As always, email Mr. LeDuc if you have any questions. You guys are doing good work. I appreciate it. Keep it up. And I'll see you next week.